not always. But I will say that I wanted to do, well, for once we did, I did a live in the group a few days ago about relationships, and then it spurred some conversations, and then something that I posted in the group yesterday. So I just felt like, okay, let's both go live, so we can hear. It's always interesting and good to hear a man's perspective when it comes to relationship as well, both within ourselves and interacting with each other. So the way I had a feeling about this that I wanted to talk about, and then you get to add whatever you want to talk about. And I just wanted to address what some people call karmic relationships, but it's really about who we attract. And this can be love relationships, but it's also definitely in friends, work, anything. And then we're going to get, because it's always a reflection of self, right? But I wanted to dive deeper into this a little bit more, because one of the things that I posted in the group yesterday was about, especially for empaths, I forget exactly how I wrote it, but the life lesson of empaths, if you identify with an empath or a sensitive person or a psychic person, needs to learn to set boundaries for one, but also their role into not prioritizing themselves. And that leads to attracting often emotionally unavailable people. Because then we tend to hold space, and not just space, but tend to hold the emotions and the energy of other people, so they don't have to learn to be emotionally available. And I really wanted to dive into that a little bit more today. And then, as you said, we're going to add sacredness to it too.
Yeah, as a dude, it's great when I'm not emotionally available to be with a woman who will feel my feelings for me. It's beautiful, right? Like, I don't have to do any work. I'm supposed to feel sad right now, and she'll feel sad for me. Beautiful. Thank you for taking my feelings for me so I can continue to play my video games or watch my sports ball and do whatever I want to do. It works really well, doesn't it?
Right.
No, it does not. It does not work well.
It does not work well. Depends on if how how the two of you want to be in that space or not. But we're going to assume that people are listening to this, or people in my group are going to not want to be in that space and want to instead call in or improve their relationships to be more harmonious and to be more of what they dream them to be. And as I said, this is just as much because, sometimes it's more reflected in friendship, sometimes it's more reflected in colleagues, or however we get it. And if you're single or not, it doesn't matter. But I think that's kind of the starting point of where I wanted to. Oh, I just realized I need to do one more so I can see comments if anyone's jumping up. All right. So and if anyone listening to this, even if you listen to the replay, feel free to put any comments, or if it resonates, or questions or anything in the chat, or if you're going to catch this on YouTube later, do the same, because we always check there, and we'll get back to you there. And we're doing these lives in the Facebook group Center Within You.
I have a question for you, Kristina.
Okay.
Along these lines, as a woman, what does it mean to be with an emotionally available man to you? Out of curiosity.
Available or non-available?
An emotionally available man. What does that mean to you as a woman?
For me, it's become a non-negotiable, and it's applicable not just in a man; it's applicable in women too. Because I've changed my whole life. I've changed my friends, and I've changed everything in my life the last few years, right? But what it feels like is that, for one, it can be put as taking off pressure, and that can mean many things, right? It can mean just like, okay, there's a lot, going on right now, do you understand me or not? Do you understand if I'm stressed, or if I'm anxious, if I think about something, if I'm processing something emotionally? Does the other person have space and can understand and am considerate to whatever I'm moving through, so that I don't have to well, for one, if we could take it to that level, like tippy toe around, and you know, I talk to a lot of people that either filter themselves or tippy toe around other people, because they don't want to be a burden, or they know that they might trigger someone, or that the other person won't step up. So when you do have someone that's emotionally available, it's, for me, I mean, clear communication, as you know, is the top priority for me. And to be able to feel that we can have a full, clear communication here, and it's not going to go into a bunch of other things. It can just be what it is, and it's not like, it's not filtered, it's not people pleasing, and then the second part of that is to know that the other person takes responsibility for their own processes and emotions. So if something I say or do is triggering, then being emotionally available means that, okay, we know how to handle that, both in communication with each other, but also to hold our own processes. And for me, it's important to have a network of that, which I have in terms of friends. I have a lot of coaching friends, but friends that are emotionally intelligent, and that do their, you know, inner work as well. And then also I have, you know, coaches and people that I go to when I need a different kind of professional help on a different kind of angle. So for me, it's that, to me, creates safety, which was something that we talked about the other day, like especially in a partnership, but really in any relationship, the goal is safety, right? Safety across the board. In a partnership, that would be emotional safety, spiritual safety, mental safety, physical safety, sexual safety. Like all of those things is feeling safe. And to me, that's communication, and it's about understanding each other. And when we don't understand each other, we can trust that we can communicate our way to understanding that, and that it's not just like energy being thrown all directions, because again, it's sovereignty.
So, what's the difference in your mind between safety and comfort? Because I work with people and I've had people who, what is comfortable for them is a lack of safety. They are comfortable with the lack of safety. How does one know the difference between safety and comfort?
Right. To me, that requires awareness and radical self-honesty,
Mm.
because as we all know, if we want to grow and evolve as people, personal development, and also when we talk about soul evolution, it's all about awareness of the patterns that we are in and of ourselves. And we don't always see it right away, because that's just how we work, right? So it's awareness is a priority for me, and for me is that's like, you know, journaling, meditating, being more aware to just observe what are the emotions that are going on with me, what are the thoughts that goes on in my head. Because without that awareness, we are just in this like autopilot. And so, yes, oftentimes we're in a comfort zone with, for example, living with challenge, or living with people that are not emotionally available, because especially if we've been used to that, and that usually comes from childhood. It can come from other locations too, but there's usually a core wound there. We talk about, you know, father wound and mother wound, and so we're used to a certain energetic environment or a certain emotional environment, and so that's the comfort zone. And yes, it's uncomfortable, especially if you're already in that, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I'm going to start being more aware and being more communicative and setting up boundaries that I haven't before. That's going to feel uncomfortable, because you're going to come across all those reactive patterns that are programmed, especially as children or teenagers, where it hasn't felt safe to either be seen, because there's a risk in being seen, or it hasn't felt safe to to assert yourself and to have your boundaries, because as children and teenagers, then that has repercussions usually, especially if it's our parents, right? Of
Yeah,
love or abandonment, rejection.
and I think for me, one of the things is the safety of rejection. Because I think a lot of times we are so afraid of rejection that it does not feel safe to be safe. Because what if my safety leads this person to reject me versus being comfortable in a way to where I know they won't reject me because I've played this game before and I know how to navigate a relationship to give the person what they want so they won't leave me. Because I think for me it shifted when I remember I would go on dates with women and I was asking myself, does this person like me? Like that was the question. Does this person like me? And there was a shift to, does this person have the ability and space and capacity to meet my relational needs? And that was a very big shift because if I talk about relational needs and that causes them to walk away, there's feelings of like, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. And and I would talk to women and my go-to first date question was always, how long are you single and what are you learning about yourself? And I would have women like go, how could you ask that right off the bat? Like that would scare women away. And I'd be like, if that scares a woman away, then that self-selection is like great, less time for me to have to invest it. But that took a radical shift with this idea of rejection. And my support network at the time talked about how rejection is liberation. And that for me was a big aha of like, if I worry about rejection and I worry about abandonment, then yeah, I'm going to do what's comfortable and not necessarily what's safe because sometimes my safety may make somebody else uncomfortable. And so I think for me, that's part of this equation is how do we navigate that? And how do we get our own needs met in a relationship?
Yep. Yeah, and that stems down to, before going on to that further, I mean, that stems down to our wounding. If we still have active abandonment wounding or rejection wounding or any of that, that's gonna come up, and that's gonna subconsciously rule our responses or reactions in situations like that. We can want something like we've talked about, right? Like we can want something, but then have we actually dealt with being able to hold what we want, which was what you were saying as well, which is also something like, this is the reason, and I'm going to throw in our course here because that's the reason why we're doing this, the course, opening doors to sacred love, because that sacred love is within, so that it can then be a mirror in the relationships and the people that we do call in, and how we uphold those values, boundaries first, but then values and relational needs and all of that. So we don't start sacrificing ourselves just in order to people please or be liked or whatever, or filter ourselves, or however that comes across, or fear of abandonment or rejection that would make us then choose breadcrumbs, if we call it that.
Right. And I think that to me is the amount of rejection, abandonment, and betrayal within me far exceeds any rejection, betrayal, and abandonment from somebody else. I reject my values, mission and goals to make somebody like me, to navigate their feelings for them, and you talked
That's
about
where you
being
came
an
from.
empath. Yeah, that's kind of where I was is just this idea of I've got to just take it all on and say to myself, I know this is what we want over here. But in order to keep this person, we got to go here. I'm going to reject myself. I'm going to abandon my principles. I'm going to abandon my boundaries. And that really starts us down this road where we are looking externally for things that we already have within us. And I think that's been for me the shift, the idea of, as an empath, I had a spiritual coach say, you have to learn how to observe and not absorb. As an empath, a lot of times I was absorbing people's emotions versus looking at it and observing it and saying, oh, you feel sad. How can I support you? Versus, I'm going to feel your sadness for you so you don't have to. And that rejects maybe how I'm feeling because I'm kind of feeling happy. Like I'm feeling good about myself. I'm feeling solid. You're feeling sad. Is that rejecting you? If I am, how do I navigate? Like, right, my feelings are not your feelings. And how do we walk through that as a couple, as a in a friendship or at work? And I think that's the radical shift is just this idea of observing others' feelings without absorbing them into us.
Yeah. Yes. Super important. And with that, for anyone who follows astrology, where the moon is in Pisces right now, and we're about to head into Pisces season in a week. And Pisces are known for not having boundaries. It's the water sign that doesn't have a shell, because compared to the Scorpion and the Crab, right? So, so people with Pisces placements, prominent Pisces placements, are just kind of like a heads up that those lines tend to blur a little bit. So it's important to practice those boundaries and energetic boundaries as well, which is something that I do, and you do too, I'm sure. In terms of with people that we work with, it's for me, it's like almost 100% of the people that I work with, because I've had to do that myself and make those really hard decisions myself to not sacrifice myself or neglect myself or compromise myself. For in my Dinky membership group, we had a time where many people had the 14th Dinky, which is compromise. So learning to not inner compromise is a shadow space, and instead coming into sovereignty. But there's more shadow spaces in that, obviously. But what I wanted to get into here is also this responsibility that we have for ourselves as souls in the soul journey, like the soul lesson. I feel that that's the reason why we're here, and this is coming into who do we attract into our life, because everything around us is always a mirror for where we're at. And so if we do attract people that are not emotionally available, where we can always turn that to a mirror, where at the moment am I not listening to myself? Because we're attracting someone that's not listening to themselves, that are not in tune to their own emotions. So then there's always this inward opportunity, always. That's what full sovereignty is for me, to take the responsibility for me and not for anyone else, and not blaming and getting out of victimhood and like, well, they need to learn that. Well, no, I need to learn. You need to learn to see then, okay, well, where am I not listening to myself? And it might be different things, right? It might be like, well, I'm not listening to myself because I'm compromising here. So why would I, why do we hold space and value? That's something that I had to work through a lot, and have worked through with a lot of people and men, and stemming from my father wound, in terms of valuing myself in how I would hold space for people, or seeing my own value as something that I would have to do for them, rather in just in who I am. That's the difference for me there, in what I do and how I give, versus just in who I am and my worthiness in who I am, not depending on what I'm doing or what I'm giving. That's a fine shift. That's a huge shift.
Hmm. No, I see that. And I think, I wonder, I reflect on my people, men, and how this conversation, like, it wouldn't even register, I think, for a lot of men. And I think we've been taught to just let women feel our feelings for us. And there's plenty of women out there who will do that we're not really put in a position to make that shift that you're talking about for ourselves. And I think
Right.
that to me is really interesting. And it's not to blame women by any means. I think it's just to recognize the long journey ahead. And it's funny how like between you and I, you have more hope for men sometimes than even I do. And I have to look to you sometimes for hope. Because I just I know, yeah, this is hard stuff.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And but because it's so societal, like, coming from Sweden, and my dad was from northern Sweden, and it's like it's a classic, but it's not just up there. It's all over the world in one way, not all cultures, but um this thing that, okay, men don't show emotions, that men don't cry, so you're not taught to how to deal with emotions. Now, not every woman is taught to deal with emotions in a healthy way either, because you could go to the other extreme where it's just all emotions and reactions, right? That's not emotionally unavailable, unavailability either, emotional sovereignty either. But that, and I've heard, several men like, oh, what do we do with this? Oh, well, you're taught to maybe, for example, go and exercise it out, which is not, it relieves the pressure, but it's not actually looking into those emotions. And so um but I mean, for me, that, like, my perspective on humanity is that we're all meant to, we're all here to do our work. So of course there's hope, because that's what we're doing. And the more I do my work, the more you do your work, the more anyone does it. We just inspire each other, so that we lift the whole, like, frequency, the whole standard, for ourselves and for relationships. And not everyone will get there, or if you believe many lifetimes, so in this time or whatever, that's okay. But we all create our own reality, so we get to create. Like, for example, I've never had a doubt in my mind since 2005 that I would meet exactly who I wanted to meet in terms of my long list and what I wanted in a partner, right? And so that has never been a doubt for me. And I know that many people do doubt it, and it hasn't been an easy road, but again, we create our own reality. So if you start doubting it, that's exactly where you get to start. Of why do you doubt that person exists? Because then it's like it's adjusting, like, the actually it's internal. Do you doubt yourself and your own manifestation abilities, your own power? We're all so powerful. That's, I think that's what most people struggle with, to recognize their own power. And so that's always where to start. If we, like, oh, if we don't doubt that person is out there, or those friendships are out there, or those work opportunities, or even those abundance, and, like, this spills out over into everything. Like, money is a relationship as well. So if we don't doubt, if we doubt that it's out there, then we get to turn in and say, okay, why do we doubt our own power, really? And with that, I also want to say, because I've sent these DMs to you, or screenshots to you, because I've had in the other group that we're both in, where we met through, I have some men sometimes DMing me, right? And just like, hi, how are you? Hi, beautiful, blah blah. And I just give it to them, because it's like, straightforwardness is like, why are you DMing me? What's your intention? This is me. I don't care to ask how I'm doing to someone that doesn't even check in with me or consider if I want to get to know you or not. And then I got, like, one reply. I was like, oh, I just want to get to know you. It's like, well, did you consider me? Did you do any research? What's your intention? Do you know I have a relationship? Like, all these things. And it's just this bleh. And I just don't have time for that. So I'm a bit but I know I'm a bit radical, right? But it's also like, okay, well, just like you said, if that's not met to start with, then I'm not even interested in having a friendship, because my friendships
right.
are also, it's a non-negotiable. The people in my life are people that are straightforward and doing their work. So if you can't handle that straightforwardness and actually the intention behind what you're saying, then that, just like what you're
I
saying on
feel
those
so
dates, like,
bad. I feel so bad for these guys because
I mean, you
I
don't, you
know,
understand it.
I do. Well, no, it's both and, Christina. Like,
Okay. Yes.
my heart is just because they're like running into, it's like they're court jesters going into the king's court and the queen's court, and they run into the queen, and they don't even know what hit them. They don't even know what hit them. It's, and I feel bad because I know the just what just happened. Like this is because we're trained as men to not like we're trained to not see you as a woman. We're trained, the culture has brought us up that your existence serves us, serves us as men. And that was a really hard habit to break. And I still struggle at times. But when you watch movies, when you go out into the sports field, like women's existence is for men. You look at men with power and how they use that power, that there's this dehumanization. That's really what it is. It's a dehumanization that I'm not even going to see you as human. I'm just going to send you a DM. And and you and I've talked. I'm a part of an alumni group from my college of about 700 or 800 singles who are 40 to 50 years old. And we share data, and the women will share all of the DMs they get. And what you get is nothing compared to what some of these women just get. And it's like, and it's like, do these guys think that it's going to work? And it's like, I don't know. And part of it, me thinks maybe it does at times. And so maybe
I
that's
was
why
thinking
they
the
keep
same.
doing
Like,
it.
right, because I was saying just like the one that I sent this morning, it was something about like, for example, the way you're not considering this is that you assume that I'm just happy with the attention. And
Hmm.
I don't need that attention from anyone, especially not a stranger that haven't spent a minute to research who I am. I have a very public profile, right? So you can find so many ways to start a connection, like, oh, I resonate, you said this or whatever. And instead of just like, oh, you're beautiful. I'm like, I don't give a shit what you think about my looks. Like, sorry, I'm a bit feisty today. But
You are so feisty today. I love it.
but no, but this is who I am. Like, I know in my coaching and most people, in my group and whatnot, I have a very soft side and I nurture with love. But when it comes to my own life, I'm radical, and that's gotten me to where I am. But it's that thing, and so that's where we, as women, if we're talking about that, where it's like, okay, before where that would have been flattering, or oh, am I just happy to get that attention from someone, then that's where we get to go in. Okay, so if I feel like I mean, of course we all get flattered by attention, right? But if it's just unsolicited attention, then, and we, and I'm not saying you can't be open. Of course, you can be more open. I'm just a bit radical, and I choose to be that. But you can be more open than that to just initiate conversation. But the thing is that that's the self-awareness that I feel like it's really important when it comes to ourselves and our own development and our abandonment wound, rejection wounds, and all of that. Because if we're so open to just attention, which, yeah, it just takes radical honesty with ourselves. Some women are, some women are not, and we still get these texts, right? Um, but
Because all of
but
my
still,
guy
it's
friends, Christina, all of my guy friends are saying, I wish women would just randomly text me and send me and I think that's the thought, right? Like for guy, and and the data from my group, we compare app data going on the dating apps. And women match at about a 40 to 50% rate. So if they swipe right on somebody, that there is a 40 to 50% chance that guy has already swiped right. For men, it's about 3% match. So if I swipe right on somebody, the chances of that person swiping right on me is about 3%. And this is over like 400 or 500 people comparing data in this group.
right.
The difference, though, is as a dude, that 3% is quality generally. Like that 3% is easier to navigate than the 50% of data of men swiping because you're inundated with all of these messages.
Right.
And some of them are random naked pictures. Some of them are random, like just like, what's up? Like, and there's no conversation. And so the quality of matches for men is different than the quality of matches for women. You just have more of them. And I think
Right.
and I think that does connect to this idea of attention, right? And whether or not we are seeking attention. And I bring that back to this idea of empathy and being empathic. The absorbing people's emotions feels like attention, right? Like if I'm in your sphere and you're feeling sad, there that feels like I'm getting attention because I'm is absorbing your emotions versus just holding space, and you get to be over there and my attention is on you, not pulling your attention to me.
Right. Yep. And to me, it's also consideration. I mean, that's what's more like I was on a dating app for 1 month last year because I knew I would. That's not how I've never thought I would meet someone like that because life is magic and I meet the people that I will meet without being on a dating app. Not that I was against it, but I just felt like that's not, I'm intuitive and I live from my intuition, right? So I was on for 1 month last year and about 1,000 swipes. I talked to maybe 3 people for a couple of DMs. I went on one date that did not go anywhere further than that. And for me, it's it was so much like I read so many bios, right? But but that's like what is the consideration like from what you're swiping, for example? Like for me it's all about like, okay, what have you taken the time to write in there? What is your values, and if you don't, then you're gonna maybe get people that also don't really care. Like again, we're coming back to this, like, are you compromising yourself? Do you know your worth? Are you putting your values
Mm.
out there? And or are you just open to see what happens? Nothing wrong with that, but like I believe that the universe reflects everything to us. So if we're just open, then we're just going to get openness and we're going to get a little bit of everything, right? So we have to learn to filter and discern. um if we have more clear for us, this is my values and what's important to me, and I'm going to put that out there. And I value someone else doing the same,
Mm.
yeah, it just comes back to, I don't know how we got into all of this, but yeah, we were just flowing in terms of relationships. And but also coming back to that, like trusting and believing that what we want is out there regardless of statistics, because that's the way we quantum leap in anything, not just relationships, right? That's how we, like, when we want to manifest whatever we want to manifest, if it's money, if it's a business, if it's a house, if it's a car, if it's a friendship, if it's a work, like whatever it is, children, whatever it is, health, like if we don't have it, this is a whole core manifestation. If we don't have it, we have to believe or have experienced it. We have to believe that it's out there, because then otherwise, why are we even believing in manifestation, right? I believe
Right.
that everything is instant manifestation in one way. And that's why something that we talked about too, and people in my group have heard so many times when I've done, manifestation workshops and whatnot, it's all about this, like, put everything that you want, everything that makes you feel good, everything that's truly valuable to you in a basket that becomes a northern star, is how I usually say it. And the way we talked about it was like, to put your dreams as high as your the next galaxy, or the make your dreams impossible dreams, because then you have that, we have that compass needle. This is what I've done for the last 2 decades. And even then in my 20s, like I made that so clear for me. So I was navigating this energy that I had from who I wanted to be with. And I went on a few dates and sometimes even a little bit longer relationship. And I was like, oh, wait, now it's not matching the energies. I'm going to hold to my standard. I'm going to hold to what is important to me. And so I did. So I even had a couple of guys that I broke up with pretty soon, because it's like, oh, nope, I veered off of that because this is my core value and I'm not willing to compromise my inner light or what I really, really want. Um, and so how it works is that, when you have that northern star or whatever it is that is way, way, way up there in terms of impossible, then you know that the universe will send you the lessons or people or love, whatever it is, your way, so that you can up level yourself to having that, because there's a reason why we're not there in this moment. So if we want to have something that we don't have. If we want to manifest, we have to up level ourselves, whatever that is. And so it's a way to get there, because we will be shown in our face, usually in relationships or in situations in life, where do we still have work to do in order to get aligned with our highest goals.
Hmm.
Mm. So that's how I feel with that, which is, this is the whole reason why I do my inner work. It's for me to better myself, and for me to not carry on a generational wound of non-emotional availability, or empaths without boundaries, or sacrificing yourself and your light, or filtering yourself. Is that I do my work so that I can hopefully inspire other people to do the same. And so I can inspire my daughter to leave this world a better place. And we're Aquarius season. It's like, it's all, it's all humanitarian services, but it starts within us. And so it's a beautiful way, the way the universe works is that we have mirrors. And I wanted to talk about that today. Like every single situation or person in our life is a mirror of where we are at the moment. So if it's something we don't like, we get to go inside and see, okay, how does this resonate with ourselves? What is it here that we can take back sovereignty in, or listen to, or whatever that is? And that's the beauty. And the more I do this work, and the more I look at the world like that, it becomes more and more instant. Like kids, for example, I feel like my daughter is such an instant of that, right? And it can be that reflection, and with us doing this work and what we're going to do in the course starting tomorrow, it's a little bit more navigation of the inner feminine and masculine, the doer, the receiver, where we're at, and where is one wounded or not, where is one trusting the other or not, which extends to relationships, whether you're a man or a woman. We all have that within us. So the more we are aware of that within us, the more and the quicker the universe will show it to us in our outer relationships as well. And it could just be like a fasting, like, whatever that we meet and say hi to, or like a random, opportunity or something that happens. It can be small, but everything is a reflection. And that's the beauty. Like we all have all these tools. The universe sends us these tools all the time. We just have to learn to read them and transcribe them, I guess.
Well, I think it's also being open to that concept, right? Like, I think a lot of us have, and again, it's the collective trauma of humanity that we look at others through this lens of victims and villains. I'm a victim, you're a villain. Or I feel like I'm the villain and all I do is create victims. And I'm just going to embrace that identity or idea instead of letting that go and just saying, if I am engaged with somebody who looks like a villain to me, maybe I need to reflect on the villain within and learn to love that part of who I am and accept and give that part of me grace and compassion and kindness and listen, like what is causing that within me, um, so that I don't project that onto others, especially kids. I think as parents, the reason I started down this road, the reason I started therapy 4 years ago was because of my kids, because I could see the impact of my self worth and lack of self worth being projected onto my kids. I was taking things personally. They were doing things, and I was feeling like a failure as a dad. And that wasn't fair to them because they were just being kids. I was learning to navigate my own emotions in, okay, they can be an independent human being and we can have a meaningful relationship. And so I think a lot of the ahas for me have been around this idea of remaining independent and building meaningful relationships. And it started with my kids. And then I was starting to see it with friends, then in romantic relationships, and that each relationship brought me closer to my list of the things that I wanted. And with each relationship, it was like, oh, that I don't ever want again. I want something different. And I would update my list based on those experiences. That list was never stagnant or finished. And I don't know that it will ever be finished because we're lifelong learners in this journey of who am I, what are my personal needs, and what are my relational needs. And I think that's been an interesting parallel as I'm working with my kids, and in my romantic relationships and in our relationship, it's a mirror. It all of it. Like there's things that I learned with you, and I have my kids the next day, and I'm like, oh, this is like the same thing coming up, and it's here we go. I just learned this lesson, or I'll support you in something, and you'll share, and I'll just listen and provide space, and then you'll go off on your day, and I'm like, where is that within me? And I'll spend like 5 hours reflecting on, okay, where is that coming up for me personally? And doing that work on my own. But if I distract myself, like by watching television, I'm not saying television is bad, or I play video games, or I numb myself, if I were going to numb myself with alcohol or whatever it is, I could easily do that and not do the work. There's so many entertainment options, there's so many distractions, and we have to find that healthy balance. But all of that, even if I'm distracting myself, there's a mirror, right? Why be curious? Why am I wanting to watch this? Why am I wanting to stuff my face with cookies and junk? What is that showing me? What am I learning about myself? And that's been a radical change for me.
Yeah, I think it's for all of us. That's for me too. I have to be really radically honest with myself of where I'm just self-sabotaging myself in what we do. And not that we have to be like time police, because that's not balance either, but we usually do have more time in our day than we think. And then we're like, oh, well, I have this priority list or to-do list that I have to do for life and for living, and I don't have time. But then if you like look at, whatever that distraction is for you, or reprioritize, there's always ways to reprioritize. And I know that for me too, of like, yeah, what is that? What is that comfort zone? For me, has been so much about, I love taking care of people. So I can easily check in on friends, clients, or whatever that is, right? And because that makes me happy. And then it's like, okay, well, but where did I do that before? Was meant to do something different for my own self, for like the exercising that I've done, or for the or for work, or for structure, or from spending time with my daughter, like whatever all of those kind of things are, right? And it's always a self radical honesty. And again, not beating yourself up, because we only grow through love and compassion. Because it's like, oh no, I did it again. That's just the mind coming in the back door, and self-sabotaging, right? Because it makes us feel bad about ourselves. But it's just more about like, oh, I did it again. As you said, observe. That's what we do with ourselves as well. And
And
then
and I do want to
choosing
say, like,
ourselves.
you are learning because you are good at helping and being there and being support for others. It's been a challenge to have somebody in your life to say, how can I support you? And what do you need? And what do you? And that for you has been erratic. I know for you has been erratic. And the same for me, right? Like you holding space for me and me not feeling guilty of taking up space. And me saying, are you okay? Like, is this too much for you? Because I'm not used to women who can just say, I'm holding space. I'm not going to feel these emotions. I'm not going to take your energy. But here's the space for you to put that energy out and just kind of, because I'm an external processor. So having the space for me to kind of hold this out there and look at it like multidimensionally outside myself, and having like you ask questions, or ask, be curious, like that helps me shift, because I'm looking at it like this and you're seeing this on this side, but I can't see that. So you're like, hey, what about this? And I'm like, oh, I didn't even see that. Thank you. And but receiving that is hard when we're so used to just giving.
Yeah, exactly. And we're the same. We're mirrors, and on top of that, we're both coaches. So so we're used to it that way too. You know, and yeah, that's been like I especially in the beginning when you getting to know you, I had to stop myself from holding space from you, from even asking. Like I consciously stopped myself from asking, from it being transactional, because you were
Hmm.
giving me so much and holding so much space, right? And then I had to stop myself from like, oh well, I feel you've given me so much, so how can I hold space for you? And I knew I was here, part of our relationship is to practice my feminine. And
Hmm.
so I was aware of that. So I stopped myself to make it transactional so that I can sit with the discomfort that it took not to give back in that moment, because that's how I knew I'm learning to receive without
Well, and
feeling
I think
guilty
that's
that I have to give something back. Yeah.
well, and I think that's for us kind of one of the big ahas is this idea of relationship being give and take. No, it's not transactional like that. The relationship is meant to be transformative. And it was hard. And for you, you needed to see, okay, is Tyler really providing this space? Or is he expecting things in return? And I was kind of sitting here going, nope, I'm here holding space. You can come and go as you please. And if you want, here I am. And if you don't want it, that's fine too. It doesn't, there's no expectation of
Or
anything
agenda is what were
or
you
agenda. Yes.
that you got, like also with the dinky there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's where the gene keys for me came in with like, oh, okay, that is the shadow and that is the gift and that is the prize for me. I need to let go of the agenda and really that greed of just having a destination, and that to me is trying to get to a destination versus just being home.
Yeah.
And that was different. Is with you were the first person in my life where I was like, I'm not trying to get anywhere with Kristina. I'm just gonna be here and let's see how things unfold and just be curious, but not have I'm not striving to get you to like me, or I'm not striving to get you to want to hold space for me, or I'm not sure like there's nothing behind that. And being energetically attuned, you're gonna feel you would have felt if there was some sort of agenda.
Yes. Big time. Yep. Mhm.
So
Yeah. And that's also like, for anyone listening, they do so much gene key work. Like that's the beauty of gene keys, that well, for one, you can look in your chart and look in the attraction field, for example. Where are you, because every gene key shows a shadow space, a gift space, and what they call a city. And so it's easier than, like, it's more explicit than any tool that I've come across of, okay, if I'm navigating these circumstances or emotions, then there's actually a transformational path that is super helpful. That's why I love to bring it in as a tool, whether it's in our own chart or what they represent, what the shadow space, and even like feminine, masculine, and all of that, like that we're going to have in our course as well. There's so much to be learned, and it's so explicit. And then we have to see, okay, well, how does this energy show up in our life? That's a different, like that's personal, even if we're talking about the same gene key, but it's easier to pinpoint that way. And so I love gene keys. I mean, I've been doing this for over a year and a half now, and it's just, and I love tools. And for those of you who know me, I have so many tools into come into intuition and getting to know our inner selves. But that's yeah, I love it. And
I gotta
with
say,
that,
I'm a
yeah.
I'm a fan of Gene Keys too, because Gene Keys is what led me to you.
Aw. Yes, you're so sweet. And it's helped you so many other ways with your kids as well. And that
Yes,
helps.
I've used it with my kids. Yes. And it led me to you.
Yeah, I always see that. It led me to you because of what I posted in that group to start with all
Yep.
Jinkies. Yep. So I wanted to go in before we get off here. You mentioned at some point, or maybe in our conversation before, but talking about um, sacred space within, or what is sacredness for us? Is that anything that you wanted to? Um, did you have a
Yeah, I think
specific thought about that, or?
I think we were talking about needs, and I think it was connected to this idea of choosing to need, right? Because when we're independent, it's not like I met you and I'm like, oh, I need Christina. Like I didn't need anything. I was fine on my own. I didn't need a relationship. I desired that relationship. Um, but by entering into the possibility, there is a choice to have a relationship, right? That one plus one equals three. So there's you, there's me, and then there's us. And so that us is sacred. That us is a choice. How we co create that, because I am not creating that and you're coming along for the ride. You are not creating that and I'm coming along for the ride. We together create that three. And by creating that three between us, that becomes the relational piece. And that within that three, there are needs, there are relational needs. And we talked about this, I think, in the Aquarius new moon. The I need connection, I need play, I need, autonomy, I need, space and safety. Like these are a relational need. And if I wasn't in a relationship with you, I wouldn't have those needs right now. I'd go back to just being me and living my life and not having those needs. So when I think the idea of sacred space is when we choose to meet, the idea of that I have made a choice to have needs with you. Not that I need you, but I have needs with you. Those parts of who we are together is this idea of sacred space. Does that make is that's kind of I
Yeah.
think what we were talking about.
Yeah, and I think for me too, that's also something like conversation we had in the group a couple weeks ago with a few people of like, and when you mentioned one plus one is not two, it could be that, and most people experience that in a relationship or experience maybe a part of it three or whatever it is. But then it's like if we're really honest, what is that co-creation? What because that three is what can enhance beyond what we can be in ourselves. That doesn't mean that we're not whole within ourselves, but that's what we live in a relational world. So to believe and to contemplate what that more is. I mean, for me too, having these internal, just bringing that internally of what is more for me within myself, that's what opened the door to abundance for me.
Mm.
That was huge, not just seeing, okay, I'm either this or this or whatever. It's like just getting that awareness, super super important. And that is, yes, obviously that's sacred, but that sacredness can come back to also, okay, what are my values, what is sacred for me as a one, that's also sacred, and then what is the three that's sacred. So it's everything sacred.
Well, because I'm not just a one, I'm a three too, because I have within me you can use yin yang, you can use masculine, feminine. I have these dimensions that are in unity together, and I am not one dimensional. I am three, four, five, six, seventh dimensional. Like, but as far as within me in this space time, I'm a three. And if I'm not a three, then I have no depth there. And I see, and I work with people in a relationship where it's one half plus one half equals one, right? You complete me. Oh, I'm incomplete without you. And that sounds romantic, but at the same time, what ends up happening is there's not one half and one half. There's somebody sacrificing their half to make the other person whole. And then maybe, so when it comes to, you know, food, I'm going to sacrifice my half to make you whole. when it comes to entertainment, I'm going to sacrifice my half to make you whole. So it's one half plus one half equals one. It's not even one plus one equals two, you know.
Right.
And so I think for me, this idea of starting within, how do I really do this work to not feel like the only way I can live is if I have somebody in my life who I can either leech emotions off of or have somebody take the emotions away from me,
Right.
right? Like, so as a little boy sitting in the corner wondering where his mommy went, I just want somebody to pat me on the head saying it's all going to be okay. Mommy's here. That's where I was. And so I think, how do we get away from that to I'm I'm good. Like I'm in a relationship because I know being in a relationship is going to move me forward in self growth, in my self journey, in my self worth. That it really is a no lose situation if I'm whole. Because again, you aren't changing my one. My one is still going to be my one. My one will adapt and grow, certainly. But really, what matters is the co creation of this three that we're creating together. And that feels a lot healthier because I get to maintain my one and be a part of this three.
Right. Yeah. And that's for anything. I mean, that's how I look at the divine matrix. And it can be more than one and one equals three too, in terms of like who we like we're all meant to be in our own gifts and in our own sovereignty, in our own creation, because then we all get to enhance each other, on a more global level, or bigger networks, or small and big networks as well. Um, it's all of that. And because it's enhancement of what the ones are. It's enhancement, not because the ones are already whole. If we choose to do our inner work, and then we can enhance to grow that one as well, right? Because we're always here to grow. And I
Right.
love that. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. I think maybe that was it. Was it? Do you feel complete?
Always. Always feel complete. Is there more you wanted to touch base on?
No, I think it was, I mean, we talked about a lot of things, but it was this about, how we, because it's such a beautiful tool for everyone, how like we can look at everyone around us, significant or not, that it's always a reflection, so that we can use that not to beat ourselves up, but to see where we have the opportunity to grow and to become whole within us, so that that gets to be then reflected more in our all of our kinds of relationships, and in our abundance, in our fulfillment in life. um, and so, it's one of the most amazing tools that we have, free tools that we have, even though it might be good to have someone to help us translate sometimes, because as you said, like, we see this, right, we don't see what's on the inside. So with that, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, and I feel like we did that, and that's also what we're doing in our course starting tomorrow. If anyone is still want to jump on last minute, um, or however that is, this is a foundational course that we will build on for business, for parenting, for all of this, and for one-on-one sessions as well. And we've talked about Kundalini, all of this. This is the foundation. It's so, so, so impactful. Some of what I have learned, what you have learned, and what we've learned together, that has shifted our entire life. I dare to say that for both of us, is
You'll go
is
right
in this
ahead.
course. Yep. And
Yeah.
that's in this course. So yeah.
Yeah, just putting the materials together this afternoon. I'm just really excited because I think we are breaking ground by integration of different frameworks to build a beautiful foundation for doing the work both within and externally. Because we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, communication. We're going to talk about um, resources. We're going to talk about how this all fits as a puzzle, and we're only covering like there's 9 dimensions that we can talk about. We're only going to be really talking about 2 to start off with, and then how do we integrate those 2? Um, and I'm really excited for that. So I'm excited to start tomorrow and see where this all goes.
Yes, yes, me too. And I'm really excited to be able to do this with you. I've always wanted to do some coaching and what I what I value with someone else, because we have different frameworks, and especially being a man and a woman, we have different yeah, we enhance each other so that we can extend that enhancement to our people as well. So that's beautiful for me and for the people that are already in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's all on my website, sanctuarywithinyou.com, opening doors to sacred love. And yeah, I think we'll finish off with this. Have a beautiful afternoon, everyone, or anyone watching the replay. As we said, if you want to leave comments later, you can do so, and we'll get back to you. Any questions, or we're both open for DMs. I'm not going to bite your head off like I do.
Make sure you tell Kristina I watched your live video and I have some questions. She will not bite your head off. If you just say, yo, what's up? Or, hey, I think you're pretty. Now I think I get to say, hey, I think you're pretty. You don't bite my head off. But yeah, just ask Kristina like your
And it's so
questions and she will
simple,
answer
isn't
them.
it? It's just so simple to DM the right way in terms of, hey, this is where I come from. This is anyways.
Us men are
Okay.
very simple, and that is not how we think, Kristina.
Okay, we're gonna
We do
talk
not think
about
like
more this. Like this is so important for us as women to know too, and for you as men to know too. So, yeah, beautiful. All right. Bye everyone. Have a beautiful afternoon. Mwah. See you next time. Bye.